Welcome to the roller coaster midlife. I am Lucie Q, and joining me today is the wonderful Holly Buxton. How's it
Hi.
going, Holly?
Good. How are you, Lucy?
I am great. Now, before we get going, I am going to ask anyone, whether you're watching us here today live or you're watching us on the replay, can you do us a favor? Can you either or do both hit subscribe and hit the like button? Because what this is going to do is this is going to tell YouTube that we've got some good shit going on here, and they're going to put it in front of more women like you. And those are women who are tired of being a hot mess and they are ready to embrace their inner badass. So if you could hit like and subscribe, that's going to help us out a whole bunch. Now, today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects. We're going to be diving in deep and slicing through the BS and supercharging your journey. We're going to be real, we're going to be raw, and we are going to be talking about the power of your why. Are you ready, Holly?
I am ready. This is also one of my favorite subjects as well.
It is, and it's so easily missed. And let's go back to what we're calling this. Motivation is bullshit.
Big time. Yep, it is bull time. Everyone, will say, I'm just waiting till I get motivated. Once I get motivated, I don't feel any motivation. Well, motivation occurs through the doing. That's where Nike made a grand slam with just do it. That's how we get motivated. That's how we create momentum. I'm not talking about just doing like jumping into the deep end and taking on a whole huge thing, but through baby steps, through action steps, that's how we create motivation. That's where motivation really is derived from. Because it's in the doing where then we become more motivated to do more and then more and then more.
But for a lot of people, that initial motivation, that's coming from a place of fear, coming from a place of desperation. It's not coming because you're making a big, bold move for yourself. And I also think of motivation where it might start the fire, but it ain't going to keep it burning. But once you know your why, that is like throwing fuel on that fire.
Right.
And that is going to keep it going.
Yeah, 100%. And there's so many ways to really explore your why, to get at the bottom of, what is the impetus behind having that hard conversation with somebody, or getting my butt to, the gym, or making that doctor's appointment that may be something you don't want to really deal with, but you need to get some answers for. That's the why behind it, because the hard stuff is hard to do. So if we don't have a good reason that's going to put a little fire under our ass, we're not going to motivate. It's just not human condition. We want to contain and stay safe and secure. So our inclination is to fight it as a human being.
And motivation, it's a bit more of, I want to say it's an external factor, because it's something that we're reacting to. We're trying to do something. It's forceful. But your why, that's something that's you have to dive deep to connect to. Yeah. And really it's connecting to your inner authentic self. And 100%. Once you align that, you can't break that.
The why is the first thing we need to talk about. But when you mentioned before, like motivation is an external thing. It is very much so. There is a science behind goal achievement, a goal obtaining. And I don't mean necessarily goal as in a big goal, like, I don't know, getting my next job promotion. It could be a small goal on the smallest level of what I have to just do today and get through the day. But if we don't really know the science behind it, it is all external. That's the misconception. The misconception is something wrong with me, that I don't have the motivation, I don't have the inspiration to do this, and there's something wrong with me. Wrong. There is nothing wrong with you. There is a science behind getting shit done. It's bottom line.
Now, when you say science, the first thing that pops into my head is formula. Mm-hmm. So is that what you mean by a science where it's an actual, you know, y plus x equals z? Is
Yeah,
it
I would.
really sort of, is that what you mean by science?
Well, I mean science in the sense that there's a lot of scientific research behind goal obtainment, behind motivation, and how it's actually derived and how we actually make these things happen. So there's a ton of research, but there is a recipe, a science behind it. And I think it's a great time of year to be discussing this because we're going to be moving into a new year. And that's when everyone starts thinking about
The
goals.
resolutions.
Exactly. But it's understanding that, and you don't want to be in the same place next year. We talk about X, Y, and Z happening, and then it doesn't come to fruition. But there's a reason why, and there's actual steps and, things that we can do to create the greatest likelihood for success. And one of the first things we need to do is understand our why. I would start there first. Before anything. Actually, probably before you start anywhere, I would probably ask people to do almost like a vision exercise to think about.
Exactly.
Yeah, to see, like, it's like, so whatever, what's today's date? October
17th.
So it's October 17th, 2024. What would you want to see happen in your life, in every aspect of your life, whether it be your relationships, your health, and your well-being? If we were celebrating today, here, right now, your victories and your accomplishments and how you want to feel, what would that be for you? And I would tell people to do a dive in every aspect of their lives. Like I said, relationships, health, and well-being. When I mean relationships, I mean intimate relationships, I mean peer relationships, maybe work relationships, health and well-being, physical health, from mental health, emotional well-being, sleep, food, everything, you name it, everything. I would talk about career or interests, if one is not, interested in a career at this point, or they're retiring, where their interests going to be, their own personal development, dive into everything. You need to do a vision. Without a vision, then it's hard to really, create any type of action plan.
And that's really where I started my journey.
Yeah.
When I was sitting at rock bottom, I had a good look at what I didn't want. And then I said, okay, well, if I don't want this, then what is it that I want? And that's when I created that vision of my future self. So same thing, it's just a little bit different context. And I just sat there and same thing. I pictured myself 5 years into the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was I? What did I think? How did I spend my time? And for me, I didn't have like concrete goals.
Right.
Like when I sat there that day, I didn't sit there and say, I want to have a podcast with over 300 episodes. Yeah. It never even crossed my mind. Yeah. But I knew that I wanted to, call it be entrepreneurial and have an inspiring business and be self-sufficient. I knew I wanted that. And the reason why I wanted that was because I wanted to have the power to choose how I spend my time. But so that was one of it's what I call my why formations. I have one specifically for that.
I do think that some people might have very specific goals, like you said.
Yeah, great.
They want to write a book. Maybe they want to start a podcast. Maybe they want to start a new career, or they want to retire. They want to move. They might have some, but you're right. Oftentimes it's more how I want to feel, or it's within the realm of it. So even on a more simpler level, and I want to say I wouldn't go any more than 5 years, because midlife, we're changing all the time. I tell people actually to stick within a year vision, because that's just a lot. But you might want to think about where I want to be in 3 years from now. There's just so much shifting and changing in midlife. So I think having anything beyond like 5, like anything more than
you can't, because the thing is that you can't think 10 years into the future, because in 3 years, you're going to be a completely different person.
Yeah, a lot changes.
And that person is going to have a different view. So you're right. Going anything, really, even a year. Yeah. I look at my growth over the last 12 months. 12 months ago, I wouldn't have imagined I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing. Yeah. So I think 12 months is a really good place to start.
I do. I think, and again, like if you want to think like where would I like to be in 3 years, that's kind of the biggest I would go. I
Yeah.
would even simplify it for some women who really even struggle with that. I ask them, let's pretend we woke up in the morning and everything you woke up and everything that you wanted to feel and experience is occurring. What would your day, how would your day lay out? Like from the minute you wake up to the minute you put your head on your pillow, what might be some of those things that you are experiencing or feeling within those days? Because for some people, it's hard to get granular, it is. So if we can just make it even smaller and envision a day with what you want to experience and how you want to feel, we can get some answers with that as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. So let's just say step number 1 is creating that future vision.
Yep.
Step number 2 is finding whether it's an overall why or a why, different whys associate to different aspects of your vision.
Yes.
So what would you say is step number 3?
After the why?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot involved with the why that we should probably talk about.
Okay, let's do that.
Because I don't want to jump ahead too much so there's you have the vision, and then so some people like, well, what do you mean by your why? So let's say like I don't know, you share with me something that you're putting something out, right? In November, you're putting out another.
Yeah, I have it might not be November, might be New Year now, but I'm writing a fable style book to share, to basically teach the methodology behind why formations.
Okay, perfect. So let's use that as an example. Okay. So you come to, after, having, doing this exploration with this vision, you come to determine that one of the things that you'd like to see come to fruition or an aspiration would be this book, right? So you want to take the opportunity to list you're going to list both the positive and negative. This is Rudy, everybody. Hi, Rudy.
Hi, Rudy.
Hi, Rudy. Yeah, you're going to get camera shy all of a sudden. So you want to take a look at the positive things I will experience as a result of, let's say, writing this book, right? But as you pointed out before, I think you said something about, you said about the things that you don't want, right? So then at the same time, you want to write all the negative things I will experience if I don't get, this result as a result.
If you don't do it.
Right. If you don't.
Okay. If not. Okay. I was going to say, do I have to write out the negative experiences if I do it?
Yeah. Well, the concept, right? No, so you have both of those. So you want to do the positive outcomes and the negative, because oftentimes it's just a reality. Pain mobilizes us more. It just does. It does. It's just a fact. We get motivated by the fact like, I might get diabetes, or I don't want to feel like I didn't succeed in this particular area of my life. I don't want to be like, I wish I did it, rather than, at least I tried, kind of thing. So we need to list the positive results that I will get out of it, as well as the negative. Sometimes that fire will be underneath us. Then we go back to the positive things I will experience as a result, but we also have to write down the consequences should I give up.
Okay.
So if I give up on this, what are the consequences? Okay. And the same thing with, with the negative, what would be the consequences that I would give up if, the negative things that I will experience as a result. So you really kind of want to break this down a lot, because like I said, a lot of the time we're motivated by the pain, the factor of still being here, not, feeling good in our own skin, however you might define that, whether it be within your career, your health and well-being, or in your relationships, So for example, like a woman who might be not happy within her relationship, her marital relationship, or someone who is divorced or widow is seeking wants to be, finds some kind of romantic partner. So, it's hard to get back out there, or it's hard to have those hard conversations with our partner about, getting our marriage back on the road. But what are the negative consequences if I don't? Another year I'm going to be here, and the tension that'll be within the house. Or how will I be able to look at myself in the mirror knowing that I didn't give myself some opportunities to get out there and meet other people, for those people who are seeking maybe a partner? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you got to really get I'm big into the granular, get as granular as possible so that you really have a why behind you. Because let's face it, like when we wake up in the morning, like it's so nice. We do a journal and we write this all out. It looks nice in our journal. But like when we get up in the morning and we got to get going on this, on the action behind it, what's going to be the impetus to, get my ass on the Peloton, to get my ass to pitch a podcast, to get my ass to develop new content? What's going to do that? What's going to get the impetus? Otherwise, it's going to be another day, another day, another day. And when I have my whys in front of me, reminding me, that's what then gets me going and motivated.
And it does, for me, in my experience, my underlying why behind a lot of what I do, in places like this, I have my own sort of personal physical whys to do with my, what goes on in my private life. But when I'm talking about anything that has to do with me speaking, the roller coaster podcast, anything like that, writing the book, for me, it all goes back to that one pivotal day when I found myself at rock bottom. It was also the day that I figured all of this shit out. But I go back to that woman sitting there who was so lost, so broken. She was a hot mess. And I go back to that person. And that is my biggest driving why. And last night I actually did, it was my first, I was a guest speaker in a women's group. So it was live.
So great.
Yeah, it was the first time, completely out of my comfort zone, but it was exciting. And at the end of it, there was one woman who basically said, yesterday I was such a hot mess. And she said, and I had acknowledged everything that I didn't want in my life anymore. But I did not know how to get to what I wanted. And she said, and tonight you answered that for me. So that is my why. That is my why. It was one person, one evening, but if I was able to help her in a way that I didn't have available to me at the time, it's all worth it.
I hear
it's
you.
all worth it.
Yeah, that's why I love working so closely and intimately with my clients. Some people think I'm crazy for, exchanging texts with my clients, but that's how I kind of keep my hand on the pulse. But there is nothing better than getting a text from a client saying, the other day, I think I actually posted it and said, I felt such profound peace and content. Like, so, they're just sharing that with me. And that's what I live for, that shit. I live for that shit because I get it. To be in those moments and to be able to be a part of someone's journey, and them to start really, feeling that in their lives, there's nothing better. There is nothing better. So yeah, it really is about like, so why, and oftentimes we think it's about us when it's really not about us. It's always about someone else. It becomes, sometimes, like I'll say to people, we get so caught up in our performance, and I'm like, God, it ain't about you. It's about them. It's about serving the other person. Like if and when I do discovery calls, of course I want to knock it out of the park. But if I remind myself, I'm here for this person, this is why I'm here, to show up for them, suddenly it's easy. It's just easy. That's my why. And I connect on a human level, and I don't get caught up in making an impression and being, showing this off or that off. It's not about that. It's about being there for this human being, being seen and heard is huge. It's huge.
I also find when you know your why and you're connected to it, I find it really easy to do things like make decisions and set boundaries, because it always comes back to, is this going to bring me closer or further away from that vision of my future self?
Okay, so another great way to get really clear about your why is to do a values assessment. And a values assessment is great for exactly what you're talking about, making those hard decisions. And when I say hard decisions, it could be as big as, should I get that chemo treatment, or should I buy that present from my husband for his 50th birthday? Like, I don't mean like those we just get caught. We get caught up in the self-doubt. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do that? When we know our core values and we align with them and we use them as a force, we can then make better decisions, because then we know what's most important to us. And then as long as we're in alignment with those core values, then we know, okay, then this is good. This is what I'm trying to seek in the end. And I'm staying true to myself. And they're not other people's goals and aspirations.
And it's that people pleasing.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't do well in the evenings past like 7:00. I'm done. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I try and keep my evenings as sort of that time to recharge. I start my day a certain way and I end my day a certain way. And I really try to honor that. But doing what I do have to schedule in some speaking engagements in the evening. And I usually try to keep it to 2 a week.
Yep.
And once I'm at that sort of limit for 2 a week, that's it. That's my decision done. Yeah, exactly. And I had somebody, they wanted to have me for some community project. They wanted to have a meeting with me this week. And I just said, I'm booked.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Because it's my boundary.
Right. It's about what you can say no to. And this is all going to be great stuff that I think will unfold, as we talk more about the science behind like setting goals. Part of it is like what you're talking about is setting up very bright lines, very specific bright lines. And when I say bright lines, it's a terminology that lawyers use, bright lines. So that when they're in contract.
I was thinking the lines on a highway.
Well, that too, but bright lines is an expression that
the mustard and the mayo.
Yeah. But lawyers use that expression, establishing very bright lines, because then there's no questions on contracts, what's right or wrong, what it is. And the cool thing about establishing bright lines is not only does it make it clear about what I need to do, but when I fall off the cart, because inevitably I will, because we're human and we're going to fall off the cart, I know exactly I return right back to those bright lines. I know exactly what I need to do for myself. So let's say you've overcommitted yourself 1 week and you felt it. You know exactly what you need to do. Go back to those bright lines. So that's the beautiful thing about having bright lines. It's like when people say to me, Holly, like, I want to start drinking less. I'm like, well, that's great. Well, what does that mean for you? Does that mean like you want to just drink on the weekends? You want to drink 20 drinks? Like, I don't know. What does that mean? What does that mean? We need to establish very bright lines. So this way it's very clear about what you can do, what you don't want to do. And then if you fall off the horse, you know exactly how to return back to it. So that's again, this is research-based stuff. These are all those great little tricks that are behind how we get shit done. Because the truth is, there's going to be plenty of times, we're going to want to turn, I use the expression, I'm going to turn left and go to the bagel store and have a cup of coffee rather than do anything else. There's more times than not, I'm going to want to do that. So what's going to get me to go the other direction? So knowing what my values are, knowing what I want, and we need to have that reasoning behind it. Otherwise, and it's got to make sense for us. So very, very important, because especially as midlife women, I think we've gotten caught up absorbing other people's standards and measures of what's right for us versus, what isn't right for us. And so a lot of the time people are wondering like why, this aspiration doesn't take off. I'm like, well, is it even really that important to you? Like, who is an aspiration for? So that's really important that, there's the 3 A's when it comes to establishing your goals or your aspirations. And that's called, your 3 A's are affection, authenticity, and autonomy. So affection is that those are goals that you're passionate about you doing, things that really light you up and make you feel good inside, right? And then authenticity goals are goals that are driven, that are aligned with how you are and how you show up in the world authentically, right? So like, for example, for us, when we're constantly showing up, whether it be on lives or podcasts or on our social media platforms. In the past, like I remember when I first started coaching, like I would admire other people's platforms and I'd be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And it always became so hard and forced because I wasn't really being truly myself. Just the other day, someone said to me, you know what I love about your feed is that it's so genuine. I'm like, I can't do it any other way. That's how I learned. So we have to be authentic to ourselves. When we start trying to mimic other people in other ways, it'll be so forced and so difficult to make it that much harder. And then lastly, we want to have autonomous goals that are out of our own personal conviction. We're doing it because we want to do it, not because our husband wants us to do it, or our boss wants us to do it, or our child wants us to do it, or whoever it is wants you to do it. It's because we want this. It's out of our own personal conviction. So I call it the 3 A's. And it's really important that our goals that's how we set powerful goals, aligning it with these 3 A's. Make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. And again, so a lot of the time, especially as women, we're doing things because it's on somebody else's checklist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's that people pleasing, it's that societal checklist, it's all of those things.
Yep.
And really aligning with your why. Some people think, oh, it's just fluffy, motivational power talk and all that. It's not.
It's not. It really isn't. And when you use it, I have one woman who laminated her core values, and she was a top level CEO. And she's like, I whip those out all the time when I'm making decisions, because I want to make sure that I'm like, I have some kind of form of accountability, that, I want to be able to know, even though this is a hard decision, that I can put my head on the pillow at the end of the day and feel good that that was in alignment with, how I want to show up. It's no joke. It's no joke. It's a driving force behind so much our core values. Like I said, in making decisions, it can put the fire under your ass, and it also can help us organize and prioritize our time, which is really big, because then we know what to say yes and no to. Like, if it doesn't align with your core values, it should have nothing to do with your week. You shouldn't be doing any of it. If it doesn't make sense with how you want to show up in the world, then it's a big fat no. And it's that simple. It really is that simple. So that's why doing this deep dive into this stuff is so really important. And that's why starting with your why is crucial to creating motivation, inspiration, and making shit happen. And then making shit
Amen.
happen.
Amen. Now, I want to continue this conversation. I think we're going to continue it in next week's one, because we covered the future self. We sort of started tapping into the why. So let's continue the conversation next time and start getting into some of those other things, because you're right. This time of year, we're getting in that ramp up for the holidays and for the New Year's, and people start getting to January, and that's when they start thinking about, well, shit, I didn't live the life I wanted last year. Yeah. And they set lukewarm, mediocre New Year's resolutions that I think statistically they're all pretty much dropped within the second week of January.
No, that's correct. But again, because people don't understand, they think there's something wrong with them. It's not. It's a science, and you need to.
You're just doing it wrong.
Right. So we talked about, what we just talked about is, first doing the visioning, and then we talked about really establishing a strong why, whether it's through values assessment or that exercise that we talked about. Your why affirmations are huge. And then we need to start talking about more than that. Like, we need to, I don't even want to get into it, because we'll talk about.
No, we're going to do, that's going to be for next time. But this is the time. Start putting some thought into your why now, so that even if you have a rough idea of how you want next year to go, or even the first 3 months of next year, start working on that now, so that by the time that calendar rolls to January 1st, you got your shit together and you know what you're doing, and you are going to own 2024. So make sure you come back next week. We are going to continue this conversation. And check out our show notes. That's where you're going to find out more information about Holly, about what I do, and you can start to follow us on social media. And until next time, keep riding the roller coaster of midlife and be the badass that you know that you are.